It's quiet. Too quiet. Where is everybody?
Hey, look at this! Wow. Let's do that again.
No.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Kyle Dockery with the Dockery Docket. We are here with the very 39th episode of the Dockery Docket. I'm excited to be here, and I hope that you are excited to be here as well. So, all of last week, we had something very special going on in the political world, and that was the Democratic National Convention. How exciting. For the Democratic National Convention, a lot of people pop popcorn and they sit in front of their TV and they watch it and everyone's so excited. And I would like to know if you did this, if you actually watched the Democratic National Convention. It was on for what, 4 days? So I want to know if you watched any of it from the time it started to the time it ended. So make sure to write down in the comments if you watched any of it, because I assume that a lot of you didn't, and this is why I'm making this episode today, to catch you up on what actually happened during the Democratic National Convention, and also some of my opinions. So, this convention was very, very different than past conventions. With past conventions, there are balloons, there are people cheering for their candidate, but for this time around, we got Zoom calls of people cheering with some of the spaces not even filled up, or they duplicated the faces, and we got speeches. So many speeches. And I know what you're thinking. Kyle, all of these conventions are just people speaking. Well, yes, that is true. What you didn't have was the crowds, the excitement, the energy. So it was like watching one of those old PBS programs. You watch the show for a few minutes and then someone comes out and talks about how you can give money to PBS to help them stay afloat. This is how it was. For 2 hours. 2 whole hours for 4 days. A politician would speak, a recorded message, and then some celebrity hotshot would announce the next person to speak. It just didn't feel right. It was boring, bland, and people took notice. As according to U.S. News, the ratings for the DNC dropped 28% from 4 years ago, which is a very steep drop, and shows that maybe we are living in a time period where we don't need 2 hours of political speeches for 4 whole days. People have low attention spans to begin with. And a personal problem with me with the DNC is that I would rather rip out all my hair than actually watch any of it. But I had to watch some of it for this very episode. It is a sacrifice that I am willing to make for all of you. And you can thank me later by leaving a like on this video. Hey, that's a good one. Anyway, the thing about the DNC was that it was very cringy, crazy, and also very, very confusing. And the confusion started with the very first night, as they started the first night by reading out the Declaration of Independence, which led to the singing of America the Beautiful, and finished off with a bunch of little kids singing the national anthem. Now, this would have been a beautiful moment for the Democrats if you haven't watched the news for the past 3 months, as the left has continued to claim that America and all of its institutions are racist and terrible. I mean, we had the 1619 Project from the New York Times that predicted that America was created in 1619 when the slaves arrived in America. They have already talked about canceling the founding fathers like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson for being racist. And there have been calls by people to change the national anthem because the one that we already have now is racist. So after an entire year of saying all this stuff, that the people are racist, that the national anthem is racist, and it should be changed, the Democratic Party sings and says the words of the people that they want to get rid of. To me, it is very disingenuous, as the Democrats are trying to paint themselves as the beautiful, patriotic party that loves America, and this is just not true. As we have seen, this party support riots. They support protesters that are using Bibles as kindling to burn the American flag and say that America is completely and 100% a racist, horrible country. We aren't stupid. We know that Democrats called Donald Trump racist for speaking at Mount Rushmore because the founding fathers were racist. We are not stupid. We know that parts of your party would be happy to destroy the very foundation of America and create a socialist utopia. This was another thing that I learned on the very first night of the DNC, as we have seen just how radical the party has actually gone. They honestly want to get rid of capitalism, which is the foundation of America. Do you not believe me? Well, Ashley McKay, a panelist for the DNC Youth Council, this is the future of the party, okay? This is the youth, and soon they will be the party. So, she stated, the future that we want, that we're all trying to build, is about the destruction of colonization, white supremacy, and capitalism. I mean, this is the youth part of the party, and we are seeing that there is a rise in politicians like AOC and Bernie that have manipulated the party and have pushed the party more and more to the left to want to destroy the foundation of America, which is capitalism. Now, I agree with the whole idea of ending colonization and white supremacy. That all makes sense, okay? I don't want you to say, oh, the Dockery Docket supports colonization, white supremacy. No, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying the idea of getting rid of capitalism, and that capitalism is combined with the idea of white supremacy and colonization, is not true. Capitalism is its own separate thing, and that is what we need to keep in our country. But the DNC and the Democratic Party tried to push all of this under the rug, as on the very first night, they had on John Kasich, you know, the guy who ran in 2016 and only won one state but stayed in because maybe he would win, then actually helped Trump win because Ted Cruz couldn't get enough votes to win, so he couldn't knock off Donald Trump. He is very anti-Trump, which isn't really a big deal, and he was also at a crossroads. No, seriously, he was literally at a crossroads in his speech, which was smart and also a little funny, but John Kasich explained that Republicans and independents may be scared of Joe Biden because they fear that Joe may turn sharp to the left and leave them behind. And then John Kasich said, I don't believe that because I know the measure of the man. It's reasonable, faithful, respectful, and you know, no one pushes Joe around. Now, this may be true. Joe Biden may be this middle-of-the-road candidate like John Kasich is saying, but this was all destroyed when Bernie Sanders came on and said, many of the ideas for that just a few years ago were considered radical are now mainstream. Bernie's ideas, as we all know, are very, very far to the left. So this may mean that Bernie Sanders could convince Joe Biden to turn more and more to the left. They also have a 110-page document which both of them talk about what they want to have in the country. And I'm actually reading it right now, and it's absolutely crazy what they're talking about. And the very first line of this manifesto talks about climate change. They talk about prison reform. They talk about how they want to completely abolish police. We also know that his vice presidential pick, Kamala Harris, which we talked about last week, is a radical. So we know that there is a possibility that Joe Biden could shift more and more to the left. So this idea that Joe Biden is somewhere in the middle of the road candidate is not true. And after the very first night, All that we really know is that Joe Biden is a nice guy and that Trump is an evil orange man who does evil, mean, bad things. Well, at least we all got to see Billy Porter perform one of the most cringiest things in television history. Now, I showed this at the very beginning of the video. I know that some of you were probably confused on what it was. That was a music video of a protest song, which was the Stop, Hey, What's That Sound? Everybody knows what's going down. And it was absolutely cringy. It was horrible. It was terrible. And the reaction of both Shrek and Donkey from Shrek 1 was my reaction when I first saw this video. It's cringy, it's horrible, and I mean, look at those dance moves, like, who does that? My favorite part of that video is when he goes, ah, 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 ah. Like, it was absolutely a mess, and it was absolutely terrible. Night 2 of the DNC was very important, as it would determine if Joe Biden would get enough delegates to become the Democratic nominee. And at a usual convention, the state representatives would all be there in one place and say, Alaska gives all 3 delegates to Joe Biden, and then there'd be a bunch of cheers. But for this time around, the DNC did something that was really, really cool, as they had people video chat in from their state and announce who they would give their delegates to. This was a very, very cool thing, and I thought that the Democrats were very smart for doing this. This, however, does not mean that the entire night was good or was not filled with cringe at all, because there definitely was. As after all the delegates were counted, it was time to celebrate. Oh yeah. Here we had a cringy Zoom call of people clapping and cheering. Then the camera turns to Joe Biden, who is in his basement, I believe, and he looks like a deer in the headlights, surprised, in awe, not knowing what on earth is going on. It's almost like when you surprise your grandparents with something and they're like, I'm excited, but I don't know what's happening. Then people burst into Joe Biden's room with confetti, all cheering, and still there was more Zoom clapping. And once again, they go back to Joe Biden, who is still shocked. And he gives a little speech thanking everyone. And it was just very, very awkward. And it was actually kind of funny, though, because he's just standing there like he doesn't know what is going on. However, the cringe didn't stop there, as AOC also spoke and played a game of how many social justice warrior phrases can you put in a 60-second video. And along with that, make sure not to forget to mention that America is a horrible, horrible place. Then we also had Bill Clinton talking about how the Oval Office is, as he said, at a time like this, the Oval Office should be a command center. Instead, it's a storm center. There's only chaos. Just one thing never changes, his determination to deny responsibility and shift the blame. The buck never stops there. Does anyone find it ironic that Bill Clinton is talking about how the Oval Office should be sacred, even though he was having fun with interns in the Oval Office? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Bill Clinton should be the man telling us that the Oval Office should be sacred. So the night ended with a keynote speech by Jill Biden. And so Jill Biden is talking about education and all of this good stuff, and she was surprised with a guest appearance of Joe Biden. He came in, and it really, really sounded like he said, I'm Joe Biden's husband. Like, if you listen to the tape, it sounds like he says, I'm Joe Biden's husband. But apparently, he says, I'm Jill Biden's husband. I guess Jill and Joe do sound the same. And it was very funny because he always seems to make a mistake. And I wouldn't put it past him if he actually did say, I'm Joe Biden's husband. So anyway, he makes this speech about how great Jill Biden is and that she will make a great first lady. Lady, lady, lady. Yes, he really said lady 4 times. Why? Well, some say that his record scratched, but it is all good. Still, we have no policy, just that Joe Biden is a nice old man and that Donald Trump is an evil orange man. So at this point, you're probably thinking, well, it can't get any worse. But then the third night of the DNC happened, which included more speeches and more celebrities singing songs, which the Democrats didn't learn their lesson from 2016, as in 2016, they had a multitude of celebrities that came out to enforce Hillary, and now they're doing the same exact thing for Joe Biden. And people don't like it when celebrities do that because celebrities aren't average Americans. So anyway, the biggest moment of the third night came when President Obama came out and talked about how terrible and mean Trump is. And now, usually there is some respect factor that is involved between presidents and past presidents, but that was ignored. And don't get me wrong, I think that if Trump were to lose the election and have a speech, he would rip into the Democratic nominee. But it is interesting because Obama blamed Trump for everyone dying of COVID-19 and for the unemployment rate, which before the virus came, we all know that the economy was rocking and definitely rolling. Unemployment was down and people were doing good. Then we had to shut it down. That's not Trump's fault, that's the virus's fault. He said some other stuff that you can just put under the category of Trump is bad and I am good. Please elect Joe Biden, even though I said that Joe Biden can mess things up all the time. So the night ended with Kamala Harris, as she started to blame Trump for changing our lives and livelihoods and talked about how parents and students are struggling with online school. Wait, who is a president that has said multiple times that he wants to reopen the schools? That's right, Trump does. And the Democrats are saying that he wants to kill all the teachers. And so Kamala was talking about the virus and how many people were killed, but then she pivoted and said that more people of color get COVID, and that means that we have systemic racism. She said that this virus has no eyes, and yet it knows exactly how we see each other and how we treat each other. And let's be clear, there is no vaccine for racism. We've got to do the work. Now, it is sad because this is where the left is going. The country is terrible and racist, and we just need to throw it all away and restart. And the only way that we can do that is to get rid of the evil orange man, get rid of Trump, and elect Joe Biden because he's a nice old man. But still, no policy was ever addressed in this night of the DNC. The fourth and final night of the DNC was very important. It was the night that Joe Biden would speak, and there were many questions to be asked. 1, would the speech be recorded so if Joe Biden messed up, they could re-record it? 2, if Joe Biden does speak, will he mess up and say a gaffe like we have seen over and over again? 3, last but not least, is Joe Biden actually alive? Well, the speech was not recorded, and it was actually live outside on a stage in Delaware, where there were people in their cars that were parked listening to the speech, which was cool. They found a way to make sure that people could hear the speech. Now, yes, Joe Biden did stumble over some words, but I mean, the man is almost 80 years old. I can give him a break on that, and there was also no weird statements, which is very sad. And yes, Joe Biden is alive, and he's able to speak from a teleprompter, which was a very, very high goal for him. All in all, I think that the speech that Joe Biden gave was a good speech. I mean, he is trying to be a uniting president and said things that every American wants to hear. Like, for example, he said, I will be a Democratic candidate. I will be an American president. I will work as hard for those that didn't support me as I will for those who did. Like, this is a thing that all Americans want to hear, but in reality, he is a Trojan horse for the radical left that we already talked about in this episode. So even though he said things that were soft and fluffy and that he was going to unite the country, he also blamed Donald Trump for the entire pandemic and all the jobs that were lost because Trump sold them all away to China. Wait, no, COVID happened and we had to shut everything down, remember? And we had to block countries that had the virus, like China, that Joe Biden called xenophobic. But he has a plan, guys, like more testing, which we already lead the world in testing, and making medical supplies in America, which we already do, and we have ramped that up. Joe Biden also wants to make a universal mandate to wear a mask, which the president cannot do. It is out of their power to make a mandate like that. But my favorite line was a promise that I think that Joe Biden will not be able to accomplish. He said, as president, I will make this promise. I will protect America. I will defend us from every attack, seen and unseen, always without exception, every single time. Now, I don't know if Joe Biden is Superman, but sorry, Joe, I don't think you can do that. I think it is a little impossible. And if you could protect us from attacks that were seen and unseen, why did you not warn Trump or Obama about the virus? Like, thanks a lot, buddy. So, at the end, there was a big fireworks show, and Kamala Harris joined Joe Biden to celebrate, hopefully the only victory that they will ever have. All in all, the Democratic National Convention can all be wrapped up in 3 little words. Orange man bad. This was their talking point all week, and it is the glue that holds the party together, and what everyone believes in. The Democrats are split on policy. Some support the Green New Deal, and others think that we can be greener but not destroy the American economy. Some Democrats believe that we need to destroy capitalism and create a communist utopia, and others want to continue the system that we have today. But they can all agree that Trump is bad, and that is what can bring them all together. And personally, I don't think that that will be enough for the Democrats. But we will just have to wait and see, as this week is the start of the Republican National Convention. So next week we will talk about that. And I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. And remember, we only have 1 subscriber until we reach 70. So please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And until next week, on Tuesday at noonish, like my mom always says, be good, be kind, be loving. Goodbye.